Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
For decades, First Class Charter has provided high-quality motor coach transportation services to the Tennessee Valley. With numerous safety and cleanliness accreditations, First Class Charter is ready to make your group trip a reality. Contact us today by visiting firstclasscharter.net. First Class Charter, the official motor coach company of the North Alabama Lions.
Flooring sets the tone throughout your home.
For flooring that makes the right first impression, start by choosing us, Floored by Justin.
A one-stop flooring destination. Our new location stands alone for unequaled customer service and selection. Owner Justin Story's mastery of custom hardwood inlays means every room can have a custom look. Discover how the right choice of hardwood, laminate, carpet, or tile can set the tone in your home. Contact Floored by Justin today.
The Summit of Lawrenceburg is the premier senior and assisted living community in the region. The Summit makes it home for you or your loved one with diverse suites that welcome and encourage community, plus gathering spaces, neighborhoods, daily activities, and a wonderful staff that supports you every day.
Hi, I'm Tara Blue. I'm the new director of the Summit, and we would like to invite you and your family to come and tour our facility. We would love to see you here.
There's no job too big or too small for Gonzalez Lawn and Landscapes. Owner Chris Gonzalez works hard to make your commercial or residential properties one of the neighbors will envy. You won't find a lower price anywhere else, and that's a guarantee. We offer mowing, landscape removal, small construction jobs, and more. Our team is licensed and insured to ensure the best work for Lawrence County and surrounding areas. Your satisfaction is our goal. We won't leave until you're happy. Call today to set up a free quote.
Make your property rock and roll with services from GNS Excavating, specializing in white sand, compost, mulch, topsoil, landscape gravel, and steel landscape edging. Turn to the pros who know how to make your project shine with years of experience. The best part is they're locally owned and operated. Choose from a vast selection of mulch and rock from their conveniently located facility at number 3 Valley Road in Lawrenceburg, just off Buffalo Road. Phone 931-279-3841 and get started today.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
And welcome everybody in here to the X Sports Network for our Wednesday edition of the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. And folks, we've got a ton to get into. It feels like it's been forever since my last show. It's been almost a week. Last Thursday was our last show of last week. Wasn't able to be in the office Monday for a show on Monday, but we're back and we will jump right into everything because we've got a bunch to get into. So, since we've last met, Trinidad Chambliss is suing the NCAA in a Mississippi State court for his 6 year of eligibility. Usually these are cases that are a little more favorable for the player, so I'm not sure if there's really a good chance that he will be able to come back. I mean, anything's possible. Obviously, I mean, you'll see as we get through the stories we're going to get through today. But you know, the biggest thing I'm wondering about with Chambliss now is to why wouldn't he want to go to the NFL? So this is a guy that went to a Division II school in Michigan at Ferris State. You know, does well, wins a national championship, comes to Ole Miss, was expected to be the backup, wins the starting role earlier in the season, and leads Ole Miss to their best finish ever. I mean, they were realistically a play away, maybe a flag away from playing for a national championship last Monday, instead of sitting at home and worrying about their roster for next season. But you look at this NFL draft class, at least with quarterbacks. I'll just pull up a couple of names. You got Fernando Mendoza, obviously Heisman winner, probably going to be the first pick. And then next, well, I mean, there's no Dante Moore from Oregon. Todd Simpson, Cade Klubnik, Drew Auer, Garrett Nussmeier, someone like that. I mean, I think Chambliss is better than all of those guys. So most quarterback mocks don't have, Chambliss too high. This is one from back in. Well, this is a funny one. We'll take a look at this. This is from October 10th, from ESPN, an NFL draft mock class that had Oregon's Dante Moore at number 1, Fernando Mendoza at number 2, Lenoris Sellers at 3. Sellers has already announced he's coming back. Ty Simpson at 4, Carson Beck at 5, John Mateer at 6, he's coming back. Nussmeier at 7, Aller at 8, Levitt at 9, and he's coming back to school, and Taylon Green at 10. I mean, we're looking at it realistically. There may not be 5 or 6 quarterbacks taken. Because, I mean, this is a draft class. It is going to lose some GMs and probably some coaches their jobs. And I think Mendoza is fine. I think Simpson kind of teetering on whether or not he'll be good or not. Chambliss, I think he'd make a good NFL quarterback. He is exactly what you want right now. Look at some of the quarterbacks that are, some of the more popular ones in the NFL. It's the dual threat guys. It's the Josh Allen. It's the Patrick Mahomes. I get he's not really a dual threat, but guys that can move around the pocket. Bo Nix is a guy that can move around the pocket. So I'm just a little confused as to why he's waiting or trying to wait as best he can. I get it's a bad quarterback class, but you would be a pretty high draft pick. I'm probably not a first rounder, but I mean, now maybe you could make a little bit more money at Ole Miss for another year, but I think getting in the NFL, Chambliss is getting up there in age. Obviously, he's trying to fight for a 6th year of college eligibility. He's 23. He's going to turn 24 right before the season. And get to the NFL, get some insurance, stuff like that. I mean, but hey, more power to him. If he wins this case and gets to come back, look out for Ole Miss to be probably another playoff team again this next year without him. Who knows? Tennessee linebacker Arion Carter will first declared for the draft and then undeclared and entered the transfer portal, and Tennessee fans were in a tiz before he decided to return to Tennessee over the weekend. Carter joins a retooled Tennessee defense that looks to kind of change things from 2025. I mean, Tennessee's defense was bad last year, and he was on that bad defense. Probably one of the very few somewhat bright spots. He played the back half of the season on, turf toe, so it's not like he was going to be too big of a factor there. If he can stay healthy and with a pretty deep linebacker room, I think he could probably, if anything, increase his draft stock before next year. Former Syracuse wide receiver Jonte Cook has committed to Ole Miss. Cook has been at Texas, he's been at Syracuse, he's been at Washington, and now Ole Miss. So just hitting all the conferences real quick. Current President Donald Trump is set to sign an executive order granting the Army-Navy game a 4-hour TV window each year. This comes amidst talks of the playoff expanding to 16 teams, which would mean the playoff would start a week earlier, which means it would interfere with the Army-Navy game. Now, another thing that probably needs to be considered, move the season back earlier. Now, I don't think you need to move the Army-Navy game. It's a tradition, but what if one of them is in the playoff or fighting for a playoff spot? They're going to play their conference championship and then play Army-Navy, and then 2 days later go play in the first round of the playoffs? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Former Kansas State running back Dylan Edwards has announced he is transferring to Kansas. A little strange seeing somebody kind of transfer from, at least when it comes to a rivalry, from big brother to little brother. I mentioned it earlier in the season when this game was played that, just gaudy stat that Kansas State has put up over Kansas in the past couple of years. Now, Kansas did bring back their former offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, who had spent the last 2 years at Penn State. So maybe that was appealing to Edwards. Edwards has been with Kansas, Colorado, and now, Kansas State, Colorado, and now the Jayhawks. Former Indiana quarterback Alberto Mendoza is entered the transfer portal and is committed to Georgia Tech. Listen, it's an offense that utilizes mobile quarterbacks. I think that anytime we saw Mendoza play this year, he was using his legs at a pretty high level. And I don't want this to sound negative in a way, but why not try to capitalize off of your worth right now? Because look at what your brother just did. Just transfers from Cal, who was a team in the ACC last year, to Indiana, wins the Heisman Trophy, wins every major award, is probably a consensus #1 pick by most people at this point. Why not try to capitalize off that? The last Mendoza that transferred won the national championship. Don't think it's going to happen at Georgia Tech next year, but you never know until you play, and I think it's great for Alberto just to try to move elsewhere and kind of create his own legacy as well. Obviously, I think wearing the Mendoza last name and a similar jersey number in Bloomington was probably just going to get a lot of comparisons to his brother, and he might be a lot better than his brother. He might not be, and I think probably still being in Bloomington would have put a little bit too much pressure on him. Being in Atlanta now with Georgia Tech allows him to kind of make his own path. Staying in the ACC, Duke is suing former star quarterback Darian Mensah. The Blue Devils claim that Mensah signed a contract to be the quarterback for Duke despite leaving for Miami a couple of weeks. I believe that was the end of last week. Mensah's attorney ruled, pending a written ruling, denying Duke's request. Kind of stinks because we're at a point now where the guys can do whatever they want and the schools have no power and the NCAA can't tell them what to do. Because Duke, feels like they had signed a contract, and obviously, I don't believe it's especially with Duke being a private school, that contract's not going to be public information, so we don't know what it says. But you probably need to start putting some clauses in these that if you transfer, or that can bar you from transferring. I'm not sure what the rulings are on that, but it's a mess. I mean, every year. Mensah looked happy at Duke. They won the ACC championship, and a lot of those guys are coming back. And now he's in Miami, who, again, Miami is probably set up to have a better future than Duke. But this kid was at Tulane 2 years ago, had a great freshman year, gets paid a crap ton of money to go to Duke. And then same thing happens the next year. Has a good year at Duke as a sophomore, and then jumps ship to Miami, who's going to pay him a crap load of money. I mean, the winner here is Mensah when you look at a monetary value, but when it comes to being ethical and stuff like that, this is just way beyond that. But I think ethics and accountability, responsibility, consequences are out the door. And it's a real problem, and we'll talk about that more on the show as we go through with somebody that loves controversy. How about some more Lane Kiffin news? In an interview, LSU head coach Lane Kiffin revealed that it was Nick Saban who, quote-unquote, sealed the deal for Kiffin to jump ship to LSU. This is from an On3 source saying, quote, "When I called Coach Saban and talked through it with him, he said, Lane, you'll always regret it if you don't go to LSU. It's the best job in America." Now, what are the chances that's true? I don't know. Is Lane trying to save face? I think he's probably beyond that. And why throw Nick Saban under the bus? I mean, he left LSU the best job in the world to coach the Miami Dolphins, who at that point, 2005, 2004, somewhere around that era, I mean, the Dolphins weren't anything great. I mean, they hadn't been good in 30 years since, Don Shula was running things down there. And so, Nick Saban left LSU and made a better job elsewhere. I think the best job in America is wherever the best coach is. I think right now you look at some of the best jobs in America, you look at Indiana, you look at Georgia, I think you look at Ohio State, probably pretty soon Michigan with Kyle Whittingham. I even think that Vanderbilt has become a good job because Clark Lee has done such a good job there. So I don't think a school necessarily is the best job in America, because you still got to coach, you still got to recruit, you still got to put the kids out there, because let's look at Alabama for an example. Because they've had a legendary head coach retire recently, and we can look at and I just think just because we've got enough of a sample size, Alabama's not pulling in the #1 recruiting class, #2 recruiting class, even top 5 really hardly anymore. And it's been that way for a little bit, but they're not pulling in the same level of class, same level of recruiting classes. There's not the same level of fear. Obviously, I think the transfer portal has a lot to do to that, because if you're not playing your freshman year, you're just going to go somewhere else where you will play. So, the best coach, or the best job is wherever the best coach is right now. It's probably looking like Indiana. Charles Bediako is the talk of maybe the sports world today. I don't know if it's just college sports or professional sports, but it is everywhere. So, over the past couple of days, there have been talks about him suing the NCAA in hopes to return to Alabama to continue his playing career. Well, Bediako played for Alabama for 2 years, 2021, the 21-22 season and the 22-23 season. Following his second season, where he had a career average of about 6.6 rebounds, declared for the draft. Stayed in the draft the entire time, did not decide to come back to school, and then went undrafted in 2023. He's played the last 3 seasons in the G League, including 10 games this season. Like, within the past couple of weeks, this dude has been playing in the G League. A semi-pro, I don't know if it's technically a professional league. And that's where we got to kind of start the talk, because he's suing the NCAA to grant him eligibility. The complaint filed states that when the NCAA recently began to reinstate players with G League experience, and even players who had entered and been selected in the NBA draft, Mr. Bediako saw this as a chance to right a wrong decision that he had regretted over the past 3 years. So we're putting a professional basketball player back into college because he regretted, he regrets declaring for the draft and not getting drafted? Yeah. Obviously he's going to regret that. It was a bad decision. But, what are we going to do about it? You should want to come back to college for a year, maybe 2 years, make a couple $100,000, and then, try to go back to the NBA? Because I don't think you can get drafted twice. He didn't get drafted, so, that may be a thing. But this dude has played 3 different seasons in college. That's where a lot of people have some problems with this. And to go off of this is a dated quote now to some degree, but let's see if I can find this. So there was a quote that was released last night. Here we go. So this is an NCAA statement on Charles Bediako's lawsuit. So this was 15 hours ago, so around 8 o'clock last night. The NCAA is aware of media reports about a lawsuit filed against the NCAA by Charles Bediako. Mr. Bediako signed 3 NBA contracts after competing in college for 2 seasons. The NCAA has not and will not grant eligibility to any prospective or returning student athletes who have signed an NBA contract. Eligibility rules ensure high school students get a shot at earning scholarships, and we will continue to consistently apply and defend these rules. Well, they haven't. Even before this. Now, obviously, we've seen the problem with the guys at Baylor, and Louisville's shut down their G League guy for the year. So, but what are we doing? There are. Let's look for Charles Bediako. He's a 7-footer, so he's a center. Good shot blocker, good rebounder, not a huge threat offensively. Not a 3-point shooter. Maybe he's developed a bit of a shot, but. You really can't play as a big in the NBA and be a profitable big in the NBA without having a 3-point shot. Look at some of the higher viewed at big men in the NBA right now. And I'll even just go to rebound numbers. Jokic, 3-point shooter. Cat, a 3-point shooter. That's kind of the thing now. These are guys averaging 5 3-point attempts a game. Bam Adebayo, Nikola Vucevic, Paulo Banchero, Evan Mobley, Chet Holmgren. These are 3-point shooting guys. Bediako's not that. So he wants to come back to college. And another thing that was influenced this is how much NIL had changed over the past couple of years. Yeah, it's going to keep changing. That doesn't mean that, if he didn't use all his eligibility, let's say, I can't think of a guy off the top of my head. Jalen Wright from Tennessee, running back a couple years ago. He can't just come back and say, I have 1 year of eligibility left, and NIL's a lot more than it was when I was there. I want to come back. I like the winning lottery ticket numbers from a couple weeks ago when that thing was, close to $2 billion. But obviously I can't go back and get them and bring them with me now. I mean, there's zero accountability. There's zero consequences for your actions. You made a bad call. You wanted to go to the NBA and get your money. You didn't get your money, and now you want to come back to college. Well, tough crap. That's happened to a lot of other people too. And that was before these rules went into place. So you know what they're doing right now? They're, well, not in the NBA. They're, working their 9 to 5, whatever, or 8 to 4, whatever job they have now. And we got people whining and complaining because they don't think they were treated fairly. Listen, sports isn't fair. There's about 200 and let's just look right now. Just Division I. Let's look how many D1 basketball schools there are. Just Division I. So right now, in men's Division I, there are 364 teams. Let's pull out a calculator just to make sure we get these numbers right. So 364. Well, there's about 15 players on each team, give or take. So that is 5,460. Well, okay, so keep that number in mind, 5,460. In the NBA, there are 30 teams, and these teams have about 15 players. That's 450. It's a pretty big difference. About a 5,000 person difference. So trust me, dude, every year, just because you make it to college basketball and you're playing on a good team, doesn't mean that you're just granted the NBA. I mean, look at great college players like Zach Edey is a great example. He made people look silly in college. And in the NBA, let's see what Mr. Edey's up to now. This is just because I don't have his stats off the top of my head. Okay, he's actually averaging a double-double. Pretty good. Injured right now, but, last year as a rookie. There we go. Last year, 9 points, about 5 rebounds. Yeah, looks pretty good. But there are guys every year, like Luka Garza. I remember a couple of years ago from Iowa, was awesome. Where's he at? I mean, he's in the NBA, but he's not your everyday, college. I mean, he was a round 2 pick. So even the best players in college basketball aren't going on to becoming the absolute just best in the NBA. I mean, you can go back, I think a great example, and I don't think he's been treated fairly, but Dalton Knecht. And that dude was one of the second or third best players in college basketball that year, and he's averaging 5 points sitting on the bench on the G League right now for the Lakers. Dalton Knecht is in the G League. So if that wants to tell you where Bediako's at, he's had a rough go of it. But I mean, the NBA or he has. I don't know what the exact statement is, but he is. He has been granted that waiver. He is eligible. He will be able to play this Saturday against Tennessee. Now, I believe there are some more hearings that need to be had. I believe. So let's find some stuff in the past couple of hours. Okay, so the hearing for Bediako is set for January 27th. So that will be the preliminary injunction. That will be next Tuesday when Alabama plays Missouri. He will be eligible until then, though. So this Saturday, he will be eligible. Does that mean he'll play? I don't know. I mean, getting in. Now, I think he's in basketball shape, but is he, enough in with the system, so to speak, up to this point? Who knows? Some more news in college basketball. Mick Cronin, head coach at UCLA, aired his frustrations about the Big Ten conference scheduling last night. Said, quote, "I would like to thank the Big Ten for giving us 5 of our first 7 on the road." And you can definitely tell in his sarcastic tone. I would also like to mention that this is following a upset win over number 4 Purdue after UCLA had really been struggling. But UCLA has a problem with their conference scheduling because they're in Los Angeles, California, and let's just name a couple of Big Ten teams that you just think of off the top of your head. Penn State, well, that's in Pennsylvania. Ohio State is in Ohio. Michigan and Michigan State are in Michigan. Indiana, Purdue, that's in Indiana. Illinois, Northwestern, in Illinois. Minnesota, Wisconsin. None of these states are really close to California or Oregon or Washington. So he has a problem with the traveling, because obviously out of the Big Ten, there are 18 teams. There are 14 teams over here, and there are 4 over here. I had that backwards, but there are 14 teams on the east side of the country, and there are 4 teams on the west. So obviously those 4 teams from the west are going to have to travel a bit more because, well, it's not 7-on-7. They can't just make 2 divisions and like that. So if only there was like a group of schools on that west side of the country, maybe 10, 12, 14 schools, they could make their own conference, so there wouldn't be such troubles with traveling anymore. We get UCLA, USC, Oregon, Washington, obviously. I think you throw Oregon State and Washington State in that conference, so they could have a conference again. And you go to the Big 12 and grab some of those West Coast teams. You got 2 Arizona schools, you got a Colorado, you got a Utah, you got a BYU. Well, looky there, I just pulled up 11 schools, and I haven't even really dug too deep into it. Well, you got to go get Stanford and Cal back, because why are they in the Atlantic Coast Conference? Oh, wait, that was a thing like 3 years ago, and you got rid of it because you wanted more money, and now you're going to sit here and complain about it. And trust me, UCLA was one of the big schools pushing this. They were going to the Big Ten. It was, I believe, UCLA and Oregon were the 2 that were pushing it so much, and it's funny, you don't hear USC and Washington complaining about it as much. Now, USC in football, Lincoln Riley will complain about anything as long as he gets his way. But, we had a good system for this, and they didn't like it, and now they're going to complain about it. Welcome to college sports, folks. Tennessee made a big off-season hiring the other day. I believe it was actually yesterday that it was officially announced. Tennessee football bringing in Derek Owings. He's the director of football sports performance at Tennessee. He had been the guy, the trainer, I guess you could say, or the head of strength and conditioning at Indiana. Now, I think it's a great idea. Who just won? Okay, we're bringing their strength guy in because a lot of people have had some questions with Tennessee when it comes to their strength up front. Me being one of them. And I think that is totally fair. So you go get the guy that just led a team, or, well, I'm not going to say he led the team, but, you're bringing in a guy that pretty much just got that team ready to play in the national championship. Because another fun stat, the Big Ten released something, I don't remember the exact post, but it had to do with the amount of players on availability reports. Let me see if I can find that. Because it was actually pretty indicative of why Indiana was so good. Well, can't seem to find it right now, but there were 49. Oh, here we go. Big Ten availability tracker. So this is total games missed, so and a 12-game average. So some teams that struggled this year in the Big Ten, like Penn State, they had 226 total games missed between their guys. Another team that probably had some higher hopes that didn't meet them. Washington, they're 144. Oregon, 125. Ohio State, 112. USC, 104. Illinois, 112. And then you get to Iowa, 55, and Indiana, 49. Wait, you're missing 4 guys a game? And I'd say out of injuries, probably, I'd say somewhere in the 25 to 50% range are guys that would play. So you're missing 2 guys a game out of your rotation? Yeah, that's pretty incredible. So you bring that guy in. Great move. Josh Huff and Carl Miller are also following Derek Owings to Tennessee as part of the strength staff. Huff is seen as the science guy, and Miller is seen as the lineman specialist. And I don't know if you watched the Battle in the Trenches on Monday night, but there's some big dudes. And if you want a lineman specialist, if Tennessee wants to win national championships, that's how they that's how they get there, that line. See if we have anything else on the story. Well, just on the news. So let's just picture to any of the older listeners that were around in the watched college football and college sports in general in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, and even into the 2010s. So now, next year, 2027. Or the 2026 season leading into 2027. The national championship is January 25th. This year we had the 10 seed make the national championship game. It's not just 1 versus 2 anymore. Teams are suing players for entering the transfer portal. I mean, teams are suing players, a crazy statement. You don't even know what the transfer portal is. Guys are returning for a 6th year frequently. Players are transferring from rival to rival. You got guys going from Auburn to Alabama, from Ohio State to Michigan. Like that. There's a conference that wants 24 teams in the playoff every year. The top 4 seeds have nearly a month off in between their games. 2 group of 5 teams made the playoffs. Spending is not regulated. Rivalries are dying. This sport is broken. That is from @Coyote Raider on X. He makes a good point. This is not the game we grew up with, and it's changing a lot. Now, I don't want to say that it's not fun, so to speak, but man, it stinks. And I'm always a fan for change when it comes to needed change, but you hear the narrative now around college sports. It's a lot of negative now. College sports used to be fun, man. Recruiting was fun, and playing a college sports video game was fun, and now it's just, boy, do we have enough money to pay for our team, and that stinks, man. That's why I'm, not a diehard professional sports fan, because I like college sports. And speaking of college sports, we'll talk about our last college football game of the season. I know, it's so sad. It sucks that it's over. It was a great season, though. I mean, I think all things considered, we got to give this season, as a whole, looking back, probably like an 8 out of 10. I mean, this was a great season. You had Indiana win their first national championship. You had a 10 seed that people thought shouldn't have made the playoffs go all the way to the championship. You had Lane Kiffin leave his team in the middle of a playoff run to go to a rival in LSU who wasn't going to make the playoff. You had teams like Virginia and Duke fighting for ACC championships. This college football season was awesome. Now, there were some top-heavy things that made it kind of stink. In some instances, like all the drama, this, that, and the other. With the, and the stuff, like the stuff that happened at Michigan. That's not something we want to remember the season for. But I think in about 15 to 20 years, we're going to look back at 2025. I would say almost in a similar light that we look at 2007. That was a wild season. The number 1 team in the country, the team that ended up, or not the number 1 team in the country, but the team that ended up winning the national championship had 2 losses, something that was almost unheard of. I mean, there were teams with 1 loss, teams undefeated that weren't getting considered for championships around that same time. So let's talk about the national championship game. Indiana 27, Miami 21. It was a sluggish first half. Running the ball, physical. A lot of punts. It was a great defensive game in the first half, and Indiana capitalized when they needed to. You had the 1-yard touchdown run from your tight end fullback, Riley Nowakowski. He was big for them and blocking, and this was considering that Mendoza did get sacked 3 times. Kalen Black, Roman Hemby, awesome. I mean, they were beasts running the ball all season. And it feels like every playoff game you go back and look and each of them broke off at least a 20-yarder. Omar Cooper made some big catches. Charlie Becker, I think, is going to be one of the guys that everybody's trying to get in the portal. I mean, he's a sophomore in Nashville, so you'd think an SEC school might be fighting for him. Omar Cooper was big. Elijah Surratt wasn't able to have a huge game for Indiana, but he did just enough. Malachi Tony had a big game, obviously the 41-yard touchdown. I'll tell you who the real star of this game was. It's got to be Mendoza. I mean, that he finished with -8 rushing yards, and that's due to the sacks and being pressured a lot, because Buddy got hit a lot in this game. But we saw a player have his Heisman moment like months, a month after the Heisman Trophy ceremony. That touchdown run on 4th and 4, 4th and 5, whatever, from the 12-yard line to put Indiana back in front. I mean, that was incredible. Because I was sitting there thinking, man, do we have a Heisman moment? Because I think that catch that saved them against Penn State was more on the receiver than the quarterback. That's just me personally. And props to Indiana, because Mendoza had been dialed. I mean, he had 8 touchdowns and 5 incompletions in the playoffs going up to this. Well, he had 11 incompletions in this game, no touchdowns. And that was okay. You have a special teams touchdown. Obviously, Jamari Sharp, the big pick at the end of the game. And Miami loses 3 games this year. Louisville ended with a Carson Beck interception. SMU ended with a Carson Beck interception. And the national championship game ended with a Carson Beck interception. They keep trying to paint the guy as an underdog and this, that, and the other. I never bought it. It got better as the season went on, but you could tell, and you kind of tell that he felt, when Indiana took that 6-point lead, the ESPN cameras kind of all went to Beck, and you could tell that he just had that swagger about him. He was going to go out there, and I'm going to go win this national championship. And he tried too hard. Forced a ball that he didn't need to force, because look, you're going up for, I don't remember who the receiver was, whether it was Daniels, Tony, whoever it was. The safety's over the top on a cover 2, covering that half of the field. Guys coming down the field. Well, usually that safety is to cover the flat, or a curl route, a little dig route. There was nobody in the flat. You just follow the guy. Ball was underthrown right to Mr. Sharp. Gets the interception and wins the game for Indiana. I mean, just awesome. And my favorite part of the game was after the game, just sitting there and leaving ESPN on and SportsCenter and listening to Mendoza talk. I mean, that kid in interviews is electric. Calling Tim Tebow Mr. Tebow, man, it's just crazy. The kind of his story, where he's come from, because he is a Miami guy, grew up in Miami, goes to Cal, and then when he went to the transfer portal, he tried to go to Miami, and they didn't want him. They had Carson Beck, so he goes to Indiana, beats Miami, beats his hometown, and brings the national championship to the underdogs of all underdogs. I mean, Kurt Cignetti was hired at Indiana, a joke of a Big Ten school that was going to win 3 games every year, and said in a press conference confidently, "I win. Google me." And he's 27-2 since then. Let's go look at the transfer portal, because we've talked about it a lot, and let's just see where it is, right now. So let's go to the transfer portal real quick here on 24/7. Some of the top quarterbacks: Levitt, LSU. Brendan Sorsby will be at Texas Tech. Drew Messemaker at Oklahoma State. DJ Lagway at Baylor. 3 of the top 4 going to Big 12 schools. Interesting. Dylan Raiola going to Oregon. He's going to sit behind Dante Moore, who's returning again. Darian Mensah. I don't think anything's actually official yet on this, but going to Miami. Hassan Longstreet transfers from USC to LSU. So LSU brings in Sam Levitt, Hassan Longstreet, and on top of that, they go get the FCS guy from Elon. You got 3 top-ranked quarterbacks right there. Deuce Knight from Auburn to Ole Miss, Byron Brown from USF to Auburn, Rocco Beck from Iowa State to Penn State, Josh Hoover from TCU to Indiana, Austin Simmons from Ole Miss to Missouri, Ethan Grunkmeyer from Penn State to Virginia Tech, Kenny Minchie from Notre Dame to Nebraska to Kentucky, Aiden Childs from Michigan State to Northwestern, Bo Perbula from Missouri to Virginia, Aaron Philo from Georgia Tech to Florida, Lincoln Kineholtz from Ohio State to Louisville, Cutter Boley from Kentucky to Arizona State, and Caden Hauser from East Carolina to Illinois. So, yeah. The only relatively highly ranked guy that doesn't have a landing spot yet is Parker Navarro. where is he going to land? It looked like Tennessee may have been the team for a minute, but then Tennessee goes and picks up Ryan Staub from Colorado, and nothing wrong with Staub. Staub's a great guy, but not a Tennessee quarterback. I'll just put it that way. Definitely going to be some interesting moves made. In the running back department, Hawkins from North Texas is going to Oklahoma State. Hollywood Smothers from NC State to Alabama to Texas. Contravion Wisner is going to Florida State. Justice Haynes back to Georgia Tech. Or pardon, that was Jamal Haynes. It was at Georgia Tech. But Justice Haynes going to Georgia Tech. So another Haynes down there. Malik Brown going to Texas. Adam Muhammad going from Washington to Cal. Bryson Washington going from Baylor to Auburn. It's a little bit of a trade there, I guess you could say. Mekhi Frazier from Michigan State to Ole Miss. Christian Clark from Texas to South Carolina. And London Montgomery from ECU to Florida. Some other big names. At some other positions, you got... Man, Arizona State got 2 of the top 4 transfer receivers. Interesting. But Isaiah Horton from Alabama to Texas A&M. The only 5-star receiver, Cam Coleman going to Texas. Eric Singleton going from Auburn to Florida. Nick Marsh. This is a big one right here from Michigan State to Indiana. That dude's going to make some plays. Jordan Seaton still doesn't know where he's going to end up. The offensive lineman from Colorado is demanding a big paycheck. Who's going to want to surrender that much to an offensive tackle? My guess is still a school from Texas. Nothing really monumental elsewhere. You got some guys transferring from LSU to Ole Miss to LSU, stuff like that. There's a bunch of guys from Penn State to Tennessee, but we've already talked about that one. So, yeah, let's look at the top-ranked classes as of now. Top 10 goes as follows. Number 10, Notre Dame. Number 9, Kentucky. Number 8, Texas Tech. Number 7, Indiana. Number 6, Oklahoma State. Number 5, Penn State. Number 4, Ohio State. Number 3, Texas. Number 2, Ole Miss. And number 1, LSU. Man, that LSU-Ole Miss game is going to be a fight to the death next year, it just feels like. So we got our final AP poll of the season. First time we have a unanimous number 2 since 2021 with Miami. Indiana, obviously, number 1, Ole Miss 3, Oregon 4, Ohio State 5, Georgia 6, Texas Tech 7, A&M 8, Alabama 9, Notre Dame 10, BYU 11, Texas 12, OU 13, Utah 14, Vanderbilt 15, number 16, Virginia, number 17, Iowa, number 18, Tulane, number 19, James Madison, number 20, USC, number 21, Michigan, number 22, Houston, number 23, Navy, number 24, North Texas, and number 25, TCU. That's 3 American Conference teams ranked, which is really impressive, just all things considered, because, other conferences, the ACC, 2 ranked teams. Now, obviously one of them was the national runner-up, but whew. On3 posted a way too early look at 2025. I'll just give you quick thoughts, think if it's too high or too low. Ohio State at 1. I imagine they're going to get most of those guys back. Jeremiah Smith's going to be back. Bo Jackson's going to be back. Julian Sayin, I would assume, is going to be back. And, it's kind of a similar conversation we had about them last year. They lost a lot. Bunch of guys going to the draft. I assume Downs would be one of them. But, you look at the coaching staff they've lost over the past couple of years. Obviously, Matt Patricia and that defense is awesome. But you lose your OC, and that's going to, with it, you lost a lot of players in the transfer portal. Georgia at 2. Listen, until you can prove that you can beat them at the end of the year. Now, again, they did lose in the semifinals or the quarterfinals of the playoff, but it's Georgia. They're going to be good. Texas at 3, I can't put them there. They're going to sit in the 10 to 15 range for me just until they prove they can get an offensive line that can block. Notre Dame at 4, listen, this team's going to be coming back with a vengeance because they're pissed off because they just sat here and got joked on the entire offseason. Now, what have they done? Well, C.J. Carr's back. Their offensive line's going to be good, and they went and got a bunch of receivers in the portal. So it looks like Notre Dame's going to be airing it out a little bit more. Interesting there. Indiana at 5. you can preseason rank them wherever you want. They're going to end up in the top 5 at the end of the year. It just seems that way. Now, they may suck next year. I mean, they realistically could. With that guy, as long as Kirk Cignetti is their head coach, I'm believing. Oregon at 6, they lost an offensive and defensive coordinator. Now, you do bring back Dante Moore for another year. You had a bunch of young guys that were injured. So you do have a bunch of upside for next year, but it's going to be important what you bring into those coordinator roles. Texas Tech at 7. Texas A&M at 8, kind of the same thing to say about them. They will have a top 5 talented roster because they're going to buy one. Whether they finish in the top 5 will be, to be determined. But as of now, neither one of them did that this year. I don't think they'll do it next year, and probably the year after that. Miami at 9, they're going to take a step back next year. They still don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Looking like it might be Navarro now, but who knows? OU at 10. Again, I don't think we can seriously rank this team in the top 10. Their offense sucks. And you can't convince me it's going to get too much better next year. It might. But it's going to be a lot of those same guys from this year. And a lot of the ones that were profitable for you are gone. So, maybe Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer can figure something out. But, man, if it's anywhere near what their offense was like last year, Oklahoma won't be ranked at the end of the year. Their defense will not carry them this far this year because that defense was very senior-laden last year. Michigan at 11, I think that's fair. They're going to have a good coaching staff. They're going to be well coached. And they're Michigan, so they're going to have recruits. LSU at 12, I mean, kind of similar to what the Texas teams did. They bought a team. They went and got their head coach. They bought a head coach, bought some players. So, the talent will be there. It's just... It always seems like it's behind-the-scenes stuff that gets to LSU. BYU at 13, fair spot. Penn State at 14, I don't see it. We just took a bunch of guys from Iowa State, a team that was 8-4 last year and really struggled with injuries, and we're just going to put a Penn State logo on them and rank them at 14 because it's a Penn State logo? I think Matt Campbell will have the guys fired up, but I don't see anything above 8-4 year one. Ole Miss at 15, fair spot for them. Utah at 16. I think they're probably going to take a step back this year, probably a 5-7, 6-6 kind of year. Because when you go from a very experienced coach that's been with the program for 20 years like Whittingham, and you go to somebody completely new, kind of in the blue, out of the blue, you can struggle. Alabama at 17, really low for Alabama, but they lost a lot in the portal. And you're losing your quarterback. They have some bright spots because it's Alabama. They're going to recruit. They're going to bring in guys. They're going to be well coached. But right now that number's a little high. I think they're going to. It will definitely be closer to probably 10 by the season open. Washington at 18. They had a great year. We'll see if there's any more drama that comes out with Damon Williams. Obviously, there was the fear that he was going to transfer to LSU. That got shut down pretty quick. USC at 19. Maov is back, but you're losing Makai Lemon. They got a lot of interesting young pieces. It's going to be up to their defense, though, to really, if USC wants to be back, they're going to have to get stops next year. Because you look at their big games, that they were trying to win. Notre Dame couldn't get a stop. Oregon couldn't get a stop. Illinois could not get a stop. Going to make the defense, and same thing for this team here at number 20, Tennessee. Now, Tennessee revamped their defense, but you look and who's the quarterback? I mean, we know the running back room is going to be good with the Tulane transfer with Sean Bishop. The wide receiver room is going to be good. You're bringing in, Mike Matthews is still there. Braylon Staley's still there. You're bringing in Tristan Keys. You've brought in, a ton of talent. The defense is going to be good. The offensive line, it's got some holes, but it looks like it's going to be good, and they're going to be well coached. Can the defense get stops this year? You brought a bunch of guys from a Penn State defense that was the past couple of years, but you let Jim Knowles bring his guys with him. You brought in an Indiana-laden coaching strength staff. Iowa at 21 seems like they always kind of finish right in there because they'll go 8-4, 9-3, and beat some teams that they shouldn't. Houston at 22, I think they're going to decline or kind of. I don't want to say fall off, but they're definitely going to take a bit of a backseat in the Big 12 next year. I think Willie Taggart's a great head coach, but I just don't think that team was very good last year, and I don't think they bring a whole lot of positive energy back. Virginia Tech at 23, new head coach, James Franklin, a bunch of Penn State guys, but kind of the same thing I said with Penn State at number 14. This is a Penn State team that went 7-6 last year, and we're putting a Virginia Tech logo on them and calling it pretty. Don't see it. Florida at 24, this team won, 4 games last year? 3 games? Listen, John Summerall has Billy Napier written all over him. Now, I'm a Summerall guy because I was a big fan of Tulane this year, but this has Billy Napier written all over it. And, Billy Napier was more of an offensive guy, Summerall more of a defensive guy. Things could get ugly in the swamp if they don't turn around really quick. Arizona at 25, yeah, that's fair. Don't know what the quarterback room will look like, obviously, because it looks like Fafita will probably declare for the draft. Not sure there. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to talk about a lot of college basketball, maybe some college baseball. We got games from last Saturday to talk about. We've got some big games that have already happened this week. We've got new rankings, and all that will be when we return here on the Mark My Words College Sports Show.
Hey, this is Phil Hooper. Get the look you want for your favorite school, church, or business with apparel from HD Ink Screen Printing in Leoma, Tennessee. Got a logo you need embroidered or screen printed? Let HD Ink give you the professional look that sets the bar in today's world. We do fundraisers and custom designed apparel and so much more. Call today, 931-201-2961, or come see us at our new shop located at 26 Ingram Road in Leoma. Remember, HD Ink for the look you want and the look you deserve.
A Moment in Real Estate with my dad, Jeff Lee.
I get asked a lot about what the market's going to do. How's the real estate market? I've been selling real estate for a long time, and nobody has a crystal ball. And you know what? When it's your time to buy or your time to sell, it really doesn't matter what the market's doing. It's your time, and you have to do something maybe. What makes a difference is the agents and the experience that go to work for you. We're Keller Williams Hood Company, located here in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. We can help.
Hood Company, powered by Keller Williams, the #1 name in real estate.
There's a reason owners Tyler and Cindy McDowell chose the name In Service for their towing business. They did because it's their goal to be in service for you on the day that you need them the most. In Service Towing is now known far and wide for their response time because minutes matter when you're broken down. Or their 24/7 availability, you can call them anytime for service. Their professional team with years of experience and their fairness, plus their know-how in dealing with the unexpected. But the thing that In Service is known best for is how they treat their customers, and that's like family. When you need them, call them 931-843-9098.
Jack Davis Insurance, located at 201 West Gain Street in Lawrenceburg, has you covered through life's obstacles. Jack Davis specializes in group insurance for businesses and institutions of all sizes. With coverage for life, accidents, cancer, critical illness, short-term disability, dental, and vision, Jack Davis can customize a plan to meet every need. Now available Medicare plans for seniors. Contact Paige Davis at 931-492-9284 today for Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage, and prescription drug plan insurance. Serving Lawrence and surrounding counties since 1987, call the team at Jack Davis Insurance today at 931-242-5225.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
And welcome back to Mark My Words here on the X Sports Network, College Sports Show. And during the break, I was sitting here reading some posts online as this Charles Bediako story starts to pick up a little more traction from Seth Davis. This is what Nate Oates had to say a few weeks ago about James Nanji, the G League guy that signed with Baylor that really kind of opened the floodgates, so to speak, on this. Quote, "I think it's taking away opportunities from kids coming out of high school. I was a high school coach for 11 years. I wanted my kids to get opportunities when they left my program. This is taking away opportunities from those kids." Well, if Charles Bediako plays good, I don't think Nate Oates really cares about any high school kids if he can get an NBA guy on his team. So this is a statement that Alabama has released regarding this. This is a statement from the university. The University of Alabama supports Charles in his ongoing efforts to be reinstated for competition while he works to complete his degree. Of course he's going to complete his degree. This is a NCAA statement from about a half hour ago. These attempts to sidestep NCAA rules and recruit individuals who have finished their time in college or signed NBA contracts are taking away opportunities from high school students. A judge ordering the NCAA to let a former NBA player take the court Saturday against actual college student athletes is exactly why Congress must step in and empower college sports to enforce our eligibility rules. Yeah. It's a mess. And, you know, if you want to watch the Tennessee-Alabama game on Saturday and hear them talk about that, I mean, it's going to be interesting. But, I mean, this is bad, guys. I mean, we're at a point now, because obviously the Tennessee fans, because Alabama, that's who their game is against Saturday, is at home against Tennessee. Now the Tennessee fans are saying, well, hey, go get Jaden Springer, go get Keon Johnson, go get Zakai Ziegler, Kennedy Chandler. What are those guys up to? Jemai Meshack. Because Meshack and Ziegler and Kennedy Chandler and Charles Bediako were in the same high school recruiting class. Now, obviously Chandler, 5-star, one and done, saw that coming. Ziegler and Meshack, what about them? Because this would be the fifth year. This would be Charles Bediako's fifth year in college. Why are some guys getting 4 and other guys are getting 6 and 7 and 8 and you know, now this guy gets to play 2 years, go to the NBA for a little bit, and come back? Is he going to have 2 years of eligibility? Is he going to have 3? Is he going to have 1? What are we going to do about it? We're just going to say he didn't play before and give him 4? I mean, nothing would shock me. So let's go back to Saturday to talk about some games. Didn't have a whole bunch of big action on Saturday, but you did have some games. Tennessee blows a 17-point lead at home to Kentucky. Final score 80, Kentucky 80, Tennessee 78. Go to the box score. Denzel Aberdeen picked up 2 fouls early and was locked in for the second half. It just seemed like Kentucky kept bringing in a couple of guys that could shoot. Otega Owe was huge in the final minutes. The first half, it was really a lot of Colin Chandler and Jasper Johnson. For Tennessee, you got good games from, well, mainly Nate Ament. He was really good. 17 points, 5 rebounds. Only 1 turnover, had a couple assists, couple steals, this, that, and the other. Shot well, was very efficient. And then you have guys like Jalen Carey, who scores 6 points and is 3 for 12 when he shoots from me to these hats up here away from the goal. Jacoby Gillespie, 24 points on 6 of 12 shooting. I think that's fine. But Tennessee's got to find another guard that can score, because Evans can give you a couple here. Henderson might be able to score. I don't know why Ethan Berg got in the game for 3 minutes. He's not that guy. But you look in the starting lineup that Tennessee rolled out there, did not play a whole lot. And I mean play in the fact of scoring. Bishop Boswell, 4 points. Jalen Carey, 6 points, 7 rebounds. Felix Okpara, 5.6 rebounds. Tennessee out-rebounded Kentucky, they out-assisted Kentucky, and they out-turned over Kentucky. That's a big difference there. But the Cats got, and the turnovers were the big thing, because that's where Kentucky ends up getting a couple more shots than Tennessee. They take a lot more threes than Tennessee. And the Vols actually got to the line better and shot better from the line, but just inexcusable comeback. Duke, big 30-point win over Stanford. UConn, grazed by Georgetown. Illinois, nice win over Minnesota. Virginia over SMU. Butler over Seton Hall. Alabama, a 2-point win over Oklahoma. Cincinnati upset Iowa State. And boy, man, a bit of a tough week for the Cyclones. They went from undefeated, number 2, and then you go drop 2 straight to a 20-point loss to Kansas, and then a 10-point loss at Cincinnati. Bit of a rough go over there for Iowa State. Florida gets another big win. Man, I think the Gators are probably the best team in the SEC right now, just from the way they look at things. Taking down Vandy, 98-94. Vandy, an 0-2 week after starting the season 15-0. Clemson gets the win over Miami, 69-59. Tigers are still perfect in the ACC at that point. Miami, first loss. Arizona, a 7-point win over UCF. And Grand Canyon, an upset win over number 23, Utah State. Poor Utah State. They get in the starting lineup and then immediately lose. Mason Falslav, 25-12. He's awesome. You need to watch him next time. Y'all find a Utah State game televised, watch it. Michigan, a nice 10-point win over Oregon. Probably like to see a little bit more, but Michigan, at this point, they're just trying to win games. Cal stuns North Carolina in Berkeley, 84-78. Nebraska 77-58 winners over Northwestern. Purdue, a 5-point win over USC. Georgia, a 15-point win over Arkansas. Michigan State, a big win over Washington. Texas Tech gets one over BYU, 84-71 in Lubbock. A.J. DeMantis struggled. Richie Saunders struggled. Robert Wright did not struggle, but if your leading assist guy is also going to be your leading scorer in a game, you're probably going to struggle, especially when J.T. Toppin's going to go give you 20 and 13, and Lawan Watts gives you 20 and 8. Christian Anderson, 22.7 assists, only 2 turnovers. And Louisville, 100-59 over Pitt. We knew the Panthers were going to struggle this year, and this team still no Michael Brown. Ryan Conwell, 24. Frew and Woolley each with 12. Hadley with 17. McNeely with 11. That was good for Louisville. They needed to see the ball fall in the basket and get a win. Gonzaga gets a win over Seattle, 71-50. Not really any big stats for Gonzaga in that one. On Sunday, we had Houston, a 30-point win over Arizona State. On Monday, no big top 25 matchups because we had the College Football Playoff National Championship game. So we'll go to yesterday in the Atlantic Coast Conference. This is actually tonight, pardon. Why is it not giving me scores? There we go. I was about to say, that says Tuesday, January 20th, and that in front of me says it's January 21st. NC State gets one over Clemson in overtime as Clemson drops their first conference game of the year, 80-76. Van Allen Lubin was awesome for the Wolfpack in this one. He goes for 22 and 6. Darion Williams, the transfer, 17 points for him. For Clemson, R.J. Godfrey had a great game, but really nobody else was able to give him much help. Florida State knocks off Miami. That was Florida State's first conference win, and they had not looked good at all. Miami, that's when you can't afford to lose, right there. Now, I will say Robert McCray V is awesome for Florida State, but if he's the only player, you got to take him out. Or not take him, you got to be able to shut him down, is what I say. If you're going out there playing 5-on-2, you're going to struggle. SMU 91, Wake Forest 79. Good win for the Mustangs. B.J. Edwards, former Tennessee product, 24 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 6 steals, 6 turnovers. But a great game for Edwards as SMU 14-5 on the season, 5-3 in the ACC, or 3-3, pardon, in the ACC. We will jump on over now to the Big Ten, where we had an upset last night. Purdue falls to UCLA 69-67. A great win for the defense of UCLA. And they needed this. Donovan Dent, 23 points, 13 assists, 2 turnovers. Love that. Tyler Bilodeau, 14 points. Trent Perry, 11 points, 12 and 7 from Eric Daly. Not a single point off the bench, though, for UCLA. That's something you need when it comes to March. Indiana falls to Michigan 86-72 as the Wolverines start to get back on track. Tucker DeVries 15 points, Lamar Wilkinson with 8. If he's going to score 8 when he's at multiple points this season, had games where he's scored 24, 23, 44, 21, 23, 22, 24, 32, and that 21 through 32 were consecutive games. But since then, 19 points, 9 points, 8 points. He's not been shooting well against that Big Ten defense. Michigan State over Oregon, Iowa over Rutgers, and Ohio State over Minnesota in overtime. We will now jump over to the Big 12. In the Big 12, you had Iowa State get back on the right track, a 30-point win over UCF, 87-57, a triple-double last night from Mr. Joshua Jefferson, 17 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists, no turnovers. Love a no-turnover game from a guy that's going to give you a triple-double, 12 assists. Momcilovic, 20, Toure, 12, and Buchanan, 11. Just a great win for Iowa State in that defense. Locked down. Because if your name wasn't Riley Kugel or Jordan Burks, you didn't score much in this game for UCF. TCU gets one over Oklahoma State, 68-65. Texas Tech, a big 20-point win over Baylor, 92-73. Anderson goes for 26 points, 6 assists. Donovan Atwell with 21 and 22 and 4 from Big JT Toppin. I wish Baylor had some help for CJ Carr for Cam Carr, because this kid's putting up numbers. He's top 20 in the country in scoring. He's putting up 20 and 5 a night, 21 and 5 a night. Man, you give him a good team around him, and they'd probably be pretty good. Like maybe Tennessee. Oh wait, he already did that once. On over to the Big East now. Not much action there last night. Seton Hall falls to St. John's 65-60. A big win for the Red Storm, as the Pirates have really struggled in conference play, and it sucks, but it happens like every year, it feels like. Butler, a winner over DePaul. Now, in our last big conference of the day, the SEC, where we had some great action on a Tuesday night. Florida 79-61 winners over LSU. South Carolina 85-76 victors over Oklahoma. Georgia just gets it done at the Horn against Missouri. 12 points from Cannon Catchings, 11 from Cyril, 8 points, 10 rebounds from Blue Kane, 14 points from Jeremiah Wilkinson, 18 points off the bench from Marcus Millender. Mark Mitchell, though, goes for 18 points for Missouri. Jaden Stone with 13. Just enough defense for Georgia to get it done. Auburn, winners over Ole Miss 78-66, as Auburn gets back to 500 in conference play after they started 0-3. I believe actually it's just 0-2. Yes, just 0-2. But they started 1-3. They've won 2 in a row. A good week getting a home win over South Carolina and then a road win over Ole Miss. Keyshawn Murphy goes for 16 and 14. Todd Pettiford gets back in the scoring column at 17. Keyshawn Hall with 19 points. Great win for Auburn, as Ole Miss is still struggling on the offensive side of the ball. And by far the most confusing game I've seen. Arkansas 93, Vanderbilt 68. What has happened to the Commodores? They start off 16-0. They're 3-0 in the SEC, and then they fall 3 straight. You lose to Texas, which was not good. You lose to Florida, which is all right, and you lose to Arkansas, which is you had a tough stretch, but Tyler Nichols 17 points, Devin McLaughlin 10 points, Tyler Tanner really struggled from shooting, 3 of 10, only 11 points for him, and Duke Miles only 5 points. And again, if you're not going to be able to get some scoring from those guys, you got to get something off the bench. But you got a couple of guys that you really only played 3 off the bench. They scored for you, but only 16 points. And in a game when a team's putting up 90. It seems like everybody putting up double figures. It's gonna be tough. And Malik Thomas, Darius Acuff, both in the starting lineup, they combine for 30. Trevon Brazile, 10 and 14 for the Razorbacks, as they look really, really good. Now let's at least look at up to today. The action we'll have Notre Dame at North Carolina, Pitt at Boston College, Virginia Tech at Syracuse. I would say Virginia Tech, Boston College, and North Carolina should be victors here in that one. Over to the Big Ten, Maryland, Illinois. Maryland's really struggled this year. Nebraska at home against Washington. It's a long travel for Washington. Nebraska still hasn't lost. They're 18-0. Northwestern at USC. Give me the Trojans. Into the Big 12 now, where tonight, #1 team in the country is playing a team that just beat the #2 team in the country. Now this game is in Tucson and not Cincinnati. I'll go with Arizona in that one. Arizona State to West Virginia. These are two teams that have really battled back and forth. This one at 8 o'clock on Peacock. I'll go with ASU to get a nice conference win there. Into the Big East, Georgetown, Villanova, Xavier Creighton. Villanova still looks really good. And Creighton has been playing lights out lately. But funny, because on Saturday, we'll talk about it a little closer to time, St. John's head coach Rick Pitino going for win number 900 against Xavier. Head coach Richard Pitino, his son. Fun narrative in that one right there. And now into the SEC for tonight. Got a couple of games. We got Texas at Kentucky. I'd look for the Wildcats to get a big win at Rupp, but Texas is a team that's been playing better as well. Texas A&M and Mississippi State, these are two tough defensive teams. I think the size of Mississippi State is going to give Texas A&M some problems, but if their guards get going, and I'm talking about Texas A&M, watch out. So over into some college baseball news. Perfect Game, D1 Baseball, Baseball America have all dropped their preseason top 25. The season opens on Valentine's weekend, February 13th, 14th, and 15th. Preseason number 14 Tennessee will open up at home against Nicholls State. That one will be starting at Friday at 4:30 Eastern. Vanderbilt will start their season on the road in Arlington at the Shriners Children's College Classic, where they will face off against TCU on Friday, Texas Tech on Saturday, and Oklahoma State on Sunday to open the season. Those will all three be great games. Alabama, unranked to start the year, but trust me, Rob Vaughn's teams are always hot to start the season. They'll open their season at home against Washington State starting Friday Friday, February 13th, not this Friday or anything, Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And preseason number 9, Auburn, getting a lot of love, Butch Thompson's team, will open up against the Youngstown State at home. That will be starting Friday, February 13th at 7 Eastern. So that will do it for the Mark My Words. Oh, well, some breaking sports news. Cody Bellinger and the Yankees agreeing to a 5-year deal. But that will do it for this Wednesday edition of the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. We should be back on Friday to get you ready for the weekend, and a bunch of snow coming up. So you might be able to watch a bunch of sports this weekend if you're in that Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, that kind of area, Arkansas, and Texas, and Oklahoma are potentially getting some snow. So a big snowstorm going around the area over the weekend. Hopefully, we're all able to stay safe, but we will be back Friday to get you ready for all those games over the weekend. So that will do it for the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. Have a good day, everybody.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.